Yahweh, you are our King forever. Only you we fear. The scepter is yours. Yeah, you are our King forever. Only you we fear. The scepter is yours. My soul cries out in this wicked hour. Proud sinners rise up with deceitful power. They cast off your law, they despise the throne. They stain Jerusalem with blood and stone. Sons of transgression playing high priest role, but their hearts are far, chasing silver and gold. They claim your name, but deny your ways. Living for riches, shorten their days. Their pride is loud, but their roots are dry. Still we lift our eyes to the sky. Your promise remains, the seed still lives. Through David's line, salvation you give. So we cry out even in pain. Send your Messiah to reign again. Raise up the Son of David, Yahuwah. Break unrighteous kings with your sword. Clothe him in power, teach him your ways. Let him reign in truth, restore our days. Let him judge with mercy and flame. Strike the proud, exalt your name. Let every nation fall in. Oh, Yahuwah's king, keeping his law. They trusted not in Yahuwah, but in horses and men. Their mouths were smooth, but their hearts condemned. You did not choose them, they forged their claim. But the set-apart one knows every name. They defiled the altar, sold the scrolls, bought favor with silver, but lost their souls. Yet you, Yahuwah, are never blind. You weigh every heart, you redeem your kind. Zion waits for the righteous one, born from the womb like the rising sun. He will cleanse the land, uphold the law, and all who fear you will stand in awe. By Ruach and fire he'll crush deceit, establish peace under his feet. No more death in the holy place, only glory shining from your face. He gathers the holy ones like gentle rain. No iniquity, no guilt, no stain. He walks in the Ruach, speaks your word. Every promise will be heard. Nations bow, the wicked flee. Jerusalem sings in victory. Blessed is he who comes in truth. Yahuwah, chosen strong from you. Raise up the Son of David, Yahuwah. Break unrighteous kings with your sword. Clothe him in power, teach him your ways. Let him reign in truth, restore our days. Let him judge with mercy and flame. Strike the proud, exalt your name. Let every nation fall in. Oh, Yahuwah's king, keeping his law. Oh, Yahuwah, prepare him, crown him with grace. Let his throne shine from Jacob's praise. Baruch is he who comes in your name. Messiah, our King, forever the same. Yahuwah, our King forever. Son of David, Yahuwah, reign.
Hello and welcome to Kingdom of Context. I'm Sean. I'm joined by my lovely wife, Lindsay.
Hey guys, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, sweetie.
Shabbat Shalom, babe.
Thanks for joining us here, everyone. I hope you're having a great Sabbath. If you're not, if you're a Christian, if you're a disciple of Christ Jesus, and you are not celebrating this Sabbath, look into it. It's literally one of the easiest commandments that we could possibly practice, is to not work for one day out of the week. Take a rest, focus on family, focus on God. It's that easy. Check it out. Welcome everyone who's in the live chat. We hope that you're also having a good day of rest. We wanted to pick back up with 2 Samuel. We finished 1 Samuel last week, so we spent 4 or 5 weeks going through the whole book of 1 Samuel. Some interesting drama of ancient history.
Absolutely.
yet the emerging kingship of Saul, and him not basically turning away from God.
Yeah.
And not being happy with God wanting to chastise him and be like, I'm taking the kingdom from you. So we also saw the introduction of David, where he had, son of Jesse, has older brothers. Famous story, he goes to the battle lines, ends up fighting Goliath on his own, destroys Goliath, and then he becomes a kind of like a general in Saul's army for a while.
Yeah.
Until Saul turns on him and starts persecuting him. And Saul not only persecutes him, but many other righteous people, including killing a bunch of priests in Israel, which is a huge, huge no-no.
Yeah.
And so Samuel discontinues any communication with Saul. And then at the end of his life, Saul, just a day before he dies, tries to go see a witch in order to raise Samuel. And Samuel surprisingly does come up from the earth, from Sheol, and announces, tomorrow you and your son's going to die, Saul. And that does happen.
Mm-hmm.
So Jonathan dies as a result of that.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah.
Part really sucks.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like Jonathan really deserved it, but they are going to battle, so things happen. They actually lost the battle as a whole. The Philistines won that battle. So we're going to pick up in 2 Samuel chapter 1 through 5 as this story continues.
By the way, I just wanted to say, for the people who insist that was not Samuel who was called up from the grave, if you want to say that, that's fine. But can you please just at least admit that the text does not say that? Just admit you're reading that into the text because for whatever theological reason you don't like that it would really be Samuel. But because we got some comments on the last one, and it was like, okay, you're saying all of that, but can you show me where it says that in the text? And if it doesn't, can you just be honest about that part? So.
Yep. All right. So 2 Samuel chapter 1.
Now, David he's only been anointed by Samuel still, right? We don't have being like inaugurated or whatever it's called, coronated in front of
chapter 2.
The nation. Okay.
Yeah, not yet. We're not there yet. So after the death of Saul, David returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites and stayed in Ziklag 2 days. On the third day, a man with torn clothes and dust on his head arrived from Saul's camp. When he came to David, he fell to the ground and paid him homage. Where have you come from? David asked. I've escaped the Israelite camp, he replied. What was the outcome? David asked. Please tell me. The troops fled from the battle, he replied. Many of them fell dead, and many of them fell and died. And Saul and his son Jonathan are also dead. Then David asked the young man who had brought him the report, how do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan are dead? I happened to be here on Mount Gilboa, he replied, and there was Saul leaning on his spear, with the chariots and the cavalry closing in on him. When he turned around and saw me, he called out to me, and I answered, here I am. Who are you? He asked. So I told him, I'm an Amalekite. Then he begged me, stand over me and kill me, for agony has seized me, but my life still lingers. So I stood over him and killed him, because I knew after he had fallen, he could not survive. And I took the crown that was on his head, and so basically he fell in his own spear and he didn't die.
Right, so this Amalekite finished him off.
And he had to call somebody over there, be like, hey, I'm not dead yet. Please kill me.
Do me a quick favor, bro.
I can't get up, but I can't die. I need your help. That's rough, man.
Wow.
That's a rough way to go out.
And it just makes me wonder, like, where does that fall in terms of legality? I mean, obviously this is Amalekite. He's not following Yahweh, but is that murder?
Well, the intent was for Saul to take his own life. I don't know. All I know is this guy's claiming he viewed it as an act of mercy.
Yeah, I mean, because I think as humankind, we all understand that kind of death, at least in the history of mankind, with battles like this.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he's basically assisted suicide here.
Yeah.
Excuse me. We're on YouTube. Assisted unaliving. But he's trying to explain to David, I view it as an act of mercy because you typically don't show up to one of the fiercest warriors of your enemies and say, I killed your king.
Right. He's kind of like, sorry, man.
Yeah.
Here's a shield.
So I took the crown that was on his head and a band that was on his arm, and I brought them here to my Lord. And then David took hold of his own clothes and tore them. All the men who were with him did the same. They mourned and wept and fasted until evening for Saul and his son Jonathan, and for the people of the Lord, the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword.
Can I just pause for a moment and say that that is the level of love for my enemies that I'm striving for? Because as I read it, I'm going to be honest, like in my flesh, that is hard to comprehend. Not the Jonathan part, but
Right.
the Saul part, absolutely. That's a part that I'm like, I would feel so relieved and feel like God was, you know, vanquishing my enemy. But David is ripping his clothes and genuinely grieving over this.
Yeah. David inquired of the young man who had brought him the report, "Where are you from?" He said, "I'm a son of a foreigner," he answered. "I'm an Amalekite." David asked him, "Why were you not afraid to lift your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" Then David summoned one of the young men and said, "Go execute him." So the young man struck him down and he died. For David had said to the Amalekite, "Your blood be on your own head, because of your own mouth has testified against you, saying, I killed the Lord's anointed."
Wow.
So that's a rough line, I gotta say. Now he is an Amalekite. He's admitting two things that are not good to David, right? One, I'm an Amalekite.
Yeah.
Did you not know that David has purposely went out and sought out to kill the Amalekites everywhere they are?
Yeah, they're like the enemy forever.
Yeah. No, but in the previous chapters, remember?
Yeah, no,
David,
I know.
David, like, while being pursued by Saul, went out of his way to find Amalekites.
Yes, I agree with all the current history, but also just going back, back to Moses, the Amalekites have been enemies, and God says they'll be enemies of the Israelites till the end of days. So
yeah, so I'm not sure the intelligence level of the Amalekite guy. Like, doesn't seem in any culture at any point in history to be smart to say, "Oh, you're the so you're like the right hand man to Kim Jong-un. Well, I got his shield in his head here. I just killed him for you."
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that that's going to go over well no matter where you are. Wow. So it didn't go well for him. Yeah. David said, "Oh, by the way, you're an Amalekite."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess David believes that even when Saul is saying, "I need to die," I guess David wouldn't have lifted up his sword and finished Saul for him.
Who knows? He may have tried to get him off of his spear and save him. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting.
David took up this lament for Saul and his son Jonathan, and he ordered that the sons of Judah be taught. Because remember, David was not at the Witch of Endor. He didn't hear the news that Saul was going to die.
Right, that's right.
So
that's right.
No one would.
Okay, that's true. That was a fulfillment of prophecy.
David took up this lament for Saul and his son Jonathan. He ordered that the sons of Judah be taught the song of the bow. It's written in the book of Jashar, which is also referred to as the book of the upright one.
Interesting. I've heard some people say that the areas of scripture where Jashar is mentioned is a mistranslation and should be Jubilees, but that wouldn't be right? Because this song isn't in Jubilees, is it?
No.
Okay.
No, that's I don't want to.
We don't have to.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask you the question.
Your glory, O Israel, lies slain on the heights, on your heights. How the mighty have fallen. Tell it not in Gath. Proclaim it. All right. So, by the way, this wording here is one of the reasons why I've suspected that when it talks about the day of the Lord, and there's two different contexts for the glory of the Lord is being revealed.
Mm-hmm.
One is the returning son, who's the king.
Okay.
Saul is being referred to as the glory that lies slain on the heights.
Okay.
And another one would be the New Jerusalem.
Okay.
And so this is where I say we see the glory of the Lord coming in power, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Different places in Scripture, and it seems to be this unique idiomatic use for the king of Israel. Verse 20, tell it not in Gath, proclaim it not in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, and the daughters of the uncircumcised exult. O mountains of Gilboa, may you have no dew or rain, or fields yielding offerings of grain. For there the shield of the mighty was defiled, the shield of Saul, no longer anointed with oil. From the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan did not retreat, and the sword of Saul did not return empty. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and delightful in life, were not divided in death. They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. O daughters of Israel, weep for Saul, who clothed you in scarlet and luxury, who decked your garments with ornaments of gold. How the mighty have fallen in the thick of battle. Jonathan lies slain on your heights. I grieve for you, Jonathan, my brother. You were delightful to me. Your love to me was extraordinary, surpassing the love of women. So this is one of those verses where people say,
I know.
gay.
I know.
But I don't think he's gay.
Obviously not.
No. He was considered righteous, and
Yeah.
he was not a defiler of thine backside. So there was no gay relationship here, guys. So verse 27, how the mighty have fallen and the weapons of war have perished. There it is.
Yeah.
Now, here's the difference, though. Not all cultures had this romanticized view of the love of a woman.
True.
I mean, think about his experience with women so far.
Yeah.
He had given a wife, she's taken away from him. He then goes and he takes the widow of some lady and then some other lady that he barely knew. Like, he's just taking women on as a resource. It's not like he's going in some lengthy romantic courtship with these people.
You know, honestly, we don't see a whole lot of romance in scripture. I think it might be a bit more of a modern take on relationships, and I am certainly not going to complain about that. But I do think our expectations for what love looks like in a marriage has definitely evolved over time, because, you know, you do go into the scriptures and the marriages are a bit more business-like. Yeah. You know, they're a bit more straight and to the point. They don't, you know, there's not a whole lot of discussion in the scriptures about, you know, all the kinds of things that you might benefit from seeing a marriage counselor about, like how to communicate, how to speak love languages. You know, those kinds of things aren't really addressed in scripture.
They were not emphasized. It was very much straight and to the point.
Yeah.
In many occasions,
you know,
you have, like, it's almost as bad. Like, I think of Isaac's, you know, attendant, Eliezer, going to find Rebecca, and it's kind of like, yeah, you'll do.
Yes, and like I feel like that's the most romance we see in a couple is like when Rebecca sees Isaac for the first time, and or also we see Jacob loving Rachel so much that he was willing to work for her for 7 years, and it's like, and it seemed to him but a day or something like that. But that's like the closest we get to like romance and love that, you know, we see exhibited for us in the history of the scriptures.
Samson did, you know, lay in the lap of Delilah and let him play with his hair.
He had some passion going on.
But that went
There's
awry.
some passion there. But yeah, I wouldn't say that was a healthy romantic marriage for sure.
It's more like a true romance.
Yeah, more like a romance novel.
Yeah, and it seems as if the concept with David, though, is he's so busy surviving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's running for his life. He's a warrior, and I just don't think that that romance was a big aspect of his life that he had time to think about.
No, I don't think so.
It's hard to take someone on a date when you're hiding in the caves of Milcopah or wherever he was, you know, in Ziklag. I mean, can you imagine saying, "Let me take you to Ziklag for a date"?
You know, again, dating, I really think, is a modern invention, because we don't see dating in the Bible either. We don't see courting.
It's almost like it's complicated. What was very much not complicated back then. They were like, "You'll do." Yeah, I mean, you got land, I got land. Let's go.
Yeah, on the one hand, I enjoy a lot of what we have in modern marriage. On the other hand, there's some things that I feel like have been demonized that I don't think should be demonized, like arranged marriage, based on not just the parents deciding, but the people being involved in the marriage deciding as well, like consenting to that. But, you know, having your parents who are on a righteous path, you know, training you up for marriage and guiding you on who to marry and choosing someone from your clans where you're equally yoked. I see wisdom in that. So, you know, I think a lot of cultures, you know, they might not have the, you know, the prettiest relationships, but in a lot of cultures where that kind of marriage is the norm, they have much longer lasting marriages. Now we can get into all the nuances of, you know, the stigma of leaving and those kinds of things. But, you know, it's not always a bad thing when society puts a stigma on certain behaviors. And as we've seen in our own country, where divorce has taken rampant hold of our country, we are seeing now the long-term effects of divorce on those families and the children of the families. And as two children of divorce can tell you, the ramifications of even a relatively crappy marriage ending are deep into the psyche of the children involved. So
the split up families and everything. So it's like, if you have what modern culture allows for today is for young people to make a decision they're not always ready to make, which is to pick a qualified mate.
Yeah.
Whereas you have all the family around you with wisdom that knows your personality from an objective third party.
Yeah.
And then knows that other person's personality, their family objectively, and they watch you two together and they can see if there's going to be chemistry.
Yeah.
And it is something you can evaluate from a third party stance with the wisdom of older people who are not controlled by hormones.
Yeah.
You know, so it can be.
It's actually been boiled down to somewhat of a science these days with actual matchmakers out there. And typically matchmakers have very good results in what they're doing because they are going off of these specific, you know, criteria of matching people and saving people the hassle of having to go through the dating apps and all that kind of stuff. So I can tell you guys that lately in my growth as a wife internally with God working on things inside of me, I have been totally lamenting the fact that I grew up in a culture that did not train me up to be a wife. Nobody prepared me to be a wife. Nobody taught me that being a wife is an actual it's an actual position, a role that you need to grow into and learn how to do. Being married to someone is something you need to learn how to do. And, you know, I think Sean and I have done okay so far because we're truly meant to be together. But man, it would have been helpful if I had had a mom who enjoyed being a wife and a mother and was encouraging me from that standpoint from a young age to that it's okay to be a wife and a mother. And that's like one of the it's like the highest calling for a woman if you're able to bear those children. Like that's, you know, that's some training that I really could have used. So I look back on the way things were done back then, quote unquote. And while some of it is kind of cold and businesslike, some of it has a lot of wisdom involved. So my thoughts.
All right, let's get to chapter 2. So sometime later, David inquired of the Lord, should I go up to one of the towns of Judah? Go up, the Lord answered. Then David asked, where should I go? Like, so it's stuff like this that I'm just like, bro, what is going on here? Like, is it just simply like, what's the pretext of should I go up? Is it to buy groceries? Is it to take it over? Like, what's going on here? Should I just go up? Going up, God says. And then he has to respond with, can you please tell me more? Where should I go? To Hebron, replied the Lord. So David went there with his 2 wives, Ahinoam of Jezreel, Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. At this point, it's like we can drop the previous name, right?
Just say with his 2 wives.
Yeah, Abigail. Just call her Abigail. David also took the men who were with him, each with his own household, each with his household. They settled in the towns near Hebron. Then, okay, so I guess go up just means I'm going to move towns.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder in the Hebrew if like go up, it has that connotation.
Yeah, probably.
You know? So the men of Judah came to Hebron, and they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, it was the men of Jabesh Gilead who buried Saul. So David sent messengers to the men of Jabesh Gilead to tell them, the Lord bless you because you showed this kindness to Saul your Lord when you buried him. Now may the Lord show your loving devotion and faithfulness, and I also will show you the same favor because you have done this. Now then, be strong and courageous, for though Saul your Lord is dead, the house of Judah has anointed me as their king.
Now, this is just the tribe of Judah anointing him king. He's not king over all of Israel.
No.
Oh, yeah, here's Abner doing it.
It's going to talk right here. Right. Meanwhile, Abner, the son of Ner, the commander of Saul's army, took Saul's son Ish-bosheth, moved him to Mahanaim, and made him king over Gilead, Asher, Jezreel, Ephraim, and Benjamin, over all Israel.
Wow.
Saul's son Ish-bosheth was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned for 2 years. The house of David, however, followed David, and the length of time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months.
So we had a split in the kingdom way before when I thought that split happened.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. One day, Abner, son of Ner, and the servants of Ish-bosheth, the son of Saul, marched out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. So Joab, the son of Zeruiah, And the servants of David marched out and met them by the pool of Gibeon, and the two groups took up positions on opposite sides of the pool. Then Abner said to Joab, "Let us have the young men get up and compete before us." "Let them get up," Joab replied. So they got up and were counted off, 12 for Benjamin and Ish-bosheth, son of Saul, and 12 for David. And then each man grabbed his opponent by the head and thrust his sword into his opponent's side, and they all fell together. So this place, which is in Gibeon, is called Halkah Hazrim. I have no clue what that's about, guys.
Wow. Yeah, that's a very interesting wording.
Yeah. It's like what's that old fight called where you tie off two men's wrists together and then put a knife in their hand. Last man standing wins.
I don't know what that's called.
That's what that reminds me of. Yeah, that's seems a little pointless. Seems a little weird. Yeah, I don't know exactly what kind of competing this is considered. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. Makes me an old cultural ritual I don't even think about. The battle that day was intense, and Abner and the men of Israel were defeated by the servants of David. The three sons of Zeruiah were there, Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. And now Asahel was a fleet of foot like a wild gazelle, and he chased Abner, not turning to the right or to the left in pursuit. And Abner glanced back and said, "Is that you, Asahel?" "It is," Asahel replied. So Abner told him, "Turn to your right or to the left, seize one of the young men, and take his equipment for yourself." But Asahel would not stop chasing him. Once again, Abner warned Asahel, "Stop chasing me. Why should I strike you to the ground? How could I show my face to your brother Joab?" But Asahel refused to turn away. So Abner thrust the butt of his spear into his stomach, and it came out his back. And he fell dead on the spot. And every man paused when he came to the place where Asahel had fallen and died. But Joab and Abishai pursued Abner. By sunset, they had gone as far as the hill of Ammah, opposite Giah, on the way to the wilderness of Gibeon. The Benjaminites rallied to Abner, formed a single unit, and took their stand atop a hill. Then Abner called out to Joab, "Must the sword devour forever? Do you not realize that this will only end in bitterness? How long before you tell the troops to stop pursuing their brothers?" "As surely as God lives," Joab replied, "if you had not spoken up, the troops would have continued pursuing their brothers until morning." So Joab blew the ram's horn, and all the troops stopped. They no longer pursued Israel or continued to fight. And all that night, Abner and his men marched through the Arabah. They crossed the Jordan, marched all morning, and arrived at Mahanaim. When Joab returned from pursuing Abner, he gathered all the troops. In addition to Asahel, 19 of David's servants were missing. But they had struck down 360 Benjaminites who were with Abner, and they took Asahel and buried him in his father's tomb in Bethlehem. Then Joab and his men marched all night and reached Hebron at daybreak.
Man, reading these parts, all this history of Israel, it just really makes you think about the phrase, "A house divided against itself cannot stand."
Right.
And how this essentially is the Father's house until his real house comes. Like, this is supposed to represent his house on earth, and they have been divided from the start, man.
Yes.
Because they had all those civil war. Judges is before this, right?
Yes.
So yes, they had all the civil wars, all the problems in Judges, and they're just, I mean,
Korah.
It's like, is there ever
Korah
a
was the
time
first
where it
civil
was
war.
truly a united kingdom?
Yeah, it's messed up.
It's crazy.
That's why we need
Yeah.
That's why we need to be filled with the Spirit to resurrection,
Yes.
so that we can be gathered as the branches in one hand
Yeah.
by our master.
We all look at modern Christianity and act like because it's so splintered, that's just proof that it all must be so wrong. And it's kind of like, I don't know, guys. I think this might be part of the human condition that we're waiting for Yeshua to come snap us all out of, because unity seems to be relatively impossible for us for a long period of time. I believe moments of unity can happen, but man, across the board unity with a house not being divided, that clearly cannot happen until Yeshua comes and rejoins those two sticks.
Yep.
Because we suck at it.
Yep. Paul directly prophesied that, after his days, that from within their own people, wolves would rise up seeking to devour the flock. So
Yeah.
it's a thing that just constantly happens.
Yeah, we don't need the world to tear us apart when we do it to each other so well.
Chapter 3. Now the war between the house of Saul and the house of David was protracted, and David grew stronger and stronger. while the house of Saul grew weaker and weaker. And the sons were born to David in Hebron. His firstborn was Amnon by Ahanim of Jezreel. His second was Chileab by Abigail. His third was Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of King Talmah of Geshur. So I guess he's taken on more wives at this point. His fourth was, see, it doesn't, they just appear. Yeah. There's no elaborate wedding ceremony to cover. Yeah. There's no, it's just, he's got another wife. His fifth was Shaptiah, the son of Abital. So that must be another wife. His fourth was Ajinah, the son of the Haggit. I guess that's the girl's name. That is unfortunate. The sixth was Ithream by David's wife, Iglah. That's even more unfortunate.
You missed Abital too.
I'm sorry. No, I did. I did.
Oh yeah.
I did it out of order. So the point is, like, it's just there. Yeah. At this point, some people would say, because of other places in scripture, that he's collecting wives from the people they're conquering within the Benjaminites, but I don't know.
Could be.
So
I mean, it is part of it's in the Torah as far as you can marry a captive after a certain time.
And they could marry anyone within Israel.
But it's no wonder he ended up having so many problems with his children. You have that many wives and children. I mean, there's no way you can have a healthy relationship with hardly any of them. I mean, especially when you're also a king, you're running a whole country and you're involved in all this warfare. Like, yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. During the war between the house of Saul and the house of David, Abner continued to strengthen his position in the house of Saul. Now, Saul had a concubine named Rizpah, the daughter of I don't even know if I said that right. Aiah. So Ish-bosheth questioned Abner, "Why do you sleep with my father's concubine?" Abner was furious over Ish-bosheth's accusation. "Am I the head of a dog that belongs to Judah?" he asked. "All this time I've been loyal to the house of your father Saul, to his brothers, to his friends. I have not delivered you into the hand of David, but now you accuse me of wrongdoing with this woman. May God punish Abner, and ever so severely, if I do not do for David what the Lord sworn to him, to transfer the kingdom from the house of Saul to establish the throne of David over Israel and Judah from Dan to Beersheba." And for fear of Abner, Ish-bosheth did not dare to say another word to him. So Abner comes up and falsely accuses Ish-bosheth comes up and falsely accuses Abner of sleeping with a woman that basically, of course, I don't know what would have been wrong with it because she's released because Saul's dead.
Yeah, she's widowed.
But apparently he's not taking her as a wife, so he's accusing her of fornication. He's accusing him of fornication.
Yeah.
Which he says he's not doing, but his response is, "Oh, really? Is that what you think of me? So therefore, how about I just ensure that your enemy wins?"
Yeah.
How about that? Because he's not feeling any love.
Yeah.
There's no loyalty here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for fear of Abner, Ish-bosheth did not dare say another word to him. Then Abner sent messengers on his behalf to say to David, "To whom does the land belong? Make your covenant with me, and surely my hand will be with you to bring all Israel over to you." "Good," replied David. "I will make a covenant with you, but there is one thing I require of you. Do not appear before me unless you bring Saul's daughter Michal when you come to see me." Then David sent messengers to say to Ish-bosheth, son of Saul, "Give me back my wife, Michal, whom I betrothed to myself for 100 Philistine foreskins." Yo, okay. So, how does this work? Because she's with another man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's completely against Torah.
Huh.
I don't know, unless he didn't go into her before.
Is she just like possession? She's just put in one of the back rooms in the palace and he doesn't touch her?
You know, he was a king with many, many wives, you know, with lots of power. I mean, he was a human being. He did have his, you know, he wasn't a perfect person. So clearly he.
Oh, so here's her new husband,
sees her as a piece of property.
So she has a new husband. Look.
Yeah.
So Ish-bosheth sent and took Michal from her husband, Paltiel, the son of Laish. Her husband followed her, weeping all the way back to Bahurim. That's a bad look.
This just reeks of Colorado City FLDS.
What are you talking about?
That when they swap wives around in the FLDS, when the
Who are you talking
prophet, FLDS Mormons, FLDS, the polygamists in Colorado City, Utah. That's where they live. But
this is a deep cut. You might have to
it's
explain.
not a deep cut. People know what I'm talking about. The prophets of these Mormon cults will reassign wives to punish. It's part of their power. It's part of wielding their power over people. But this just reminds me of when that happens in those communities where, they'll take a wife away from one man and give her to another man. And, the man's like, I don't want my wife to go. And the wife's like, I don't want to go. And yeah, I'm just saying, this is just not his finest moment, I would say, personally.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing because, this is, honestly, I forgot about this part.
Yeah.
And so it makes me think we're seeing the type of behavior we see with Bathsheba later.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's horrible for this dude because apparently he loved her.
Yeah, he's weeping.
So Abner conferred with the elders of Israel and said, in the past you sought David as your king. Now take action, because the Lord has said to David, through my servant David, I will save my people Israel from the hands of the Philistines and all their enemies. Abner also spoke to the Benjaminites. And then he went to Hebron to tell David all that seemed good to Israel and to the whole house of Benjamin. When Abner and 20 of his men came to David at Hebron, David held a feast for them. Then Abner said to David, let me go at once, and I will gather all Israel to my lord the king, that they may make a covenant with you, and that you may rule over all that your heart desires. So David dismissed Abner, and he went in peace. We're going to see, I can't remember if we see any other interaction with Michal and David. Hang on. Before it gets to the dancing part.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Because this would make sense to why she's so salty towards him.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the time we get to the dancing part.
I don't blame her.
Yeah. So verse 22 would say, just then David's soldiers and Joab returned from a raid, bringing with them a great plunder. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, because David had sent him on his way in peace. When Joab and all his friends arrived, all of his troops arrived, he was informed, Abner son of Ner came to see the king, who went to see him on his way in peace. So Joab went to the king and said, what have you done? Look, Abner came to you. Why did you dismiss him? Now he's getting away. Surely you realize that Abner, the son of Ner, came to deceive you and track your movements and all that you're doing. As soon as Joab had left David, he sent messengers after Abner, who brought him back from the well of Sirah. But David was unaware of it. When Abner returned to Hebron, Joab pulled him aside in the gateway as if to speak to him privately, and there Joab stabbed him in the stomach. So Abner died on account of the blood of Joab's brother Asahel.
That's rough for Abner, because it seemed like he was genuine. Seems like he was genuine coming to David.
I guess he's I don't think this falls within the Avenger of Blood, because they're warm with each other, So I just think that they're still at war with each other. They're still just people not loving each other. Afterward, David heard about this. And he said, I and my kingdom are forever guiltless before the Lord concerning the blood of Abner, the son of Ner. May it whirl over the head of Joab and over the entire house of his father. May the house of Joab never be without one having a discharge of skin disease, or one who leans on a staff or falls by the sword or lacks food. So Joab and his brother Abishai murdered Abner because he had killed their brother Asahel in the battle of Gibeon.
Well, that's a helpful detail.
Yes.
After the fact.
Then David ordered Joab and all the people with him, tear clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourn before Abner. And King David himself walked behind the funeral bier. When they had buried Abner in Hebron, and the king wept aloud at Abner's tomb, and all the people wept, the king sang this lament for Abner. Should Abner die the death of the fool? Your hands were not bound, your feet were not fettered. As a man falls before the wicked, so also you fell. And all the people wept over him even more. Then all the people came and urged David to eat something while it was still day. But David took an oath, saying, may God punish me ever so severely if I taste bread or anything else before the sun sets. All the people took note and were pleased. In fact, everything the king did pleased them. So is he gonna let Joab go? They're calling it a murder.
He cursed him, but apparently he's not going to pay a real penalty for that, other than like a generational curse, which isn't great.
So all the people took note and were pleased. In fact, everything the king did pleased them. So on that day, all the troops and all Israel were convinced that the king had no part in the murder of Abner, son of Ner.
So the people really were bothered by it too.
Yeah.
Abner seems like a beloved leader.
Then the king said to his servants, "Do you not realize that a great prince has fallen today in Israel? And I am weak this day, though anointed as king. And these men, the sons of Zeruiah, are too fierce for me. May the Lord repay the evildoer according to his evil."
I can't really see him very well. Sorry. There we go.
Yeah, that's it's messed up.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I get it, hard for his glory. We understand. We
Yeah.
remember that he was taken from David, or she was taken from David. But at this point, I mean, at least in Torah, she's had relations with another man.
Yeah.
She's married to him. It doesn't say that David had relations with her.
Right.
I know they were betrothed. I get it. But at this point, it's like, what do you do here?
Yeah, because honestly, it looks like with the way Michal feels about him, as we see later, and with her husband following behind her weeping to not have her taken away, it sounds like she was in a decent situation with the new guy. So why rip that apart to bring her into your plurality of wives? You know, I personally don't agree with David's decision here.
David had a checklist, and he is checking
Yes.
things off. These are how the ways.
King, let me
These
get
were
this
the
way.
ways that I was slighted,
Yeah.
and I'm going to get recompense.
Yeah.
He is checking everything off. So chapter 4 begins. Now when Ish-bosheth, the son of Saul, heard that Abner had died in Hebron, he lost courage, and all Israel was dismayed. Saul's sons had 2 men who were leaders of raiding parties. One was named Banah, the other Rechab. They were sons of Ramon, the Beerothite, on the tribe of Benjamin. Beeroth is considered part of Benjamin because the Beerothites fled to Gittaim and have lived there as foreigners to this day. So, by the way, there's your. I don't know if they're following Torah, but as far as the names, as far as what tribe will you be grafted in, they're called Benjaminites because they lived around the Benjaminites. So it's like when the New Jerusalem arrives and the people from all the world is escorted to the mansions prepared for them, you will be receiving a mansion according to how Christ has designated you and which land to live in among which tribe.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah,
and you'll
there's
become a part of that tribe.
Yeah, there's no Gentile gate,
No.
and there's no Gentile allotment of land within the city. It's all within those 12 tribes. So, hence the grafting in.
Jonathan, son of Saul, had a son who was lame in his feet. He was 5 years old when the report about Saul and Jonathan came from Jezreel. His nurse picked him up and fled, but as she was hurrying to escape, he fell and became lame. His name was Mephibosheth. Now Rechab and Banah, the sons of Ramon the Beerothite, set out and arrived at the house of Ish-bosheth in the heat of the day while the king was taking his midday nap. See? I've been telling her I need to start taking some midday naps. It's good for me.
Start taking.
It's good for me. I don't take one every day.
No, not every day.
But I'm just saying, you know, if it's good for the king, it's good for a little kingdom of context. So they entered the interior of the house as if to get some wheat, and they stabbed him in the stomach.
Jeez. Yeah. Go, baby.
What is going on with these stomach stabbers?
It's a brutal time, man.
Like
we
they're
really
not
have it easy these days.
they're
I'm
not
telling
slitting
ya.
throats, they're stabbing stomachs. I don't understand. Like it's a much more painful death, that's for sure. All right, so then Rechab and his brothers Banah slipped away. They had entered the house while Ish-bosheth was lying on his bed, and having stabbed and killed him, they beheaded him, took his head, traveled all night by the way of the Arabah. They brought the head of Ish-bosheth to David at Hebron and said to the king, "Here's the head of Ish-bosheth, the son of Saul, your enemy who sought your life. Today the Lord has granted vengeance to my lord, the king, against Saul and his offspring."
Okay, and here
David does not respond.
Doesn't respond well to people doing
No.
these favors for him.
No, he does not respond as you think. So David answered Rechab and his brother Banah, the sons of Ramon of the Beerothite, "As surely as the Lord lives, who's redeemed all my life from all stress, and someone told me, look, Saul is dead, and thought he was a bearer of good news, I seized him and put him to death at Ziklag. That was his reward for his news. How much more when wicked men kill a righteous man in his own house
Yeah,
and on his own bed, that I shall not now require his blood from your hands
yeah.
and remove you from the earth." So David commanded his young men that they kill Rechab and Banah. They cut off their hands and feet and hung their bodies by the pool in Hebron, but they took the head of Ish-bosheth and buried it in Abner's tomb in Hebron.
Wow.
These people, man.
Wow.
These people. Yeah.
Because look, on the surface level, this kind of practice somewhat made sense at the time, and just in the context of the age of kingdoms that we're talking about, and when you went in and took over a kingdom, you know, it was kind of customary to execute, you know, the nobility, because those people may grow up and become your rivals. But as we just saw in the last chapters, Abner had come to make peace with David. And so we don't know the status of Ish-bosheth in terms of, you know, was he like, okay, I'm not king anymore, it's all good. Like, we don't see anywhere that says Ish-bosheth was coming after David once he was actually announced.
It says he lost courage. It's
Yeah.
meaning he's done.
Right. So he wasn't coming after David. So these people committing these acts of revenge, not true righteous vengeance, you know, that's why it's ticking David off, because, hey, like, these people aren't our enemies.
Yeah, and you know, again, let David give the order if that's what he wants, right? You know
Exactly. Yeah.
So this whole concept of I'm gonna take a king's command in my own hands before the king commands it.
Yeah.
Usually you die.
Yeah.
Usually you died in the old days.
Yeah.
All right, chapter 5 says, then all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, here we are, your own flesh and blood. Oh, so now they're his own flesh and blood. Even in times past, while Saul was king over us, you were the one who led Israel out and brought them back. And to you, the Lord said, you will shepherd my people Israel, and you will be ruler over them. So clearly the word's gotten out.
Yeah.
So all the elders of Israel came to the king in Hebron, where King David made them with them a covenant before the Lord, and they anointed him king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he became king, and he reigned 40 years. In Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. And in Jerusalem, he reigned 33 years over all Israel and Judah. Okay. So it's a long time. Now the king and his men marched to Jerusalem against the Jebusites who inhabited the land. Then the Jebusites said to David, you will never get in here. Even the blind and lame can repel you. For they thought, David cannot get in here.
Yeah, they've clearly been out of the loop.
Yeah. Yeah, like, who are these people?
Jebusites did not get the memo, guys.
But this is they're possessing Jerusalem at the time.
Oh yeah, I mean, they were not supposed to be. They were enemies anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, bro, have you not paid attention to what's going on?
What do you guys have going on that you don't know anything about all this?
A whole bunch of introverts. Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion, that is the city of David, and on that day he said, whoever attacks the Jebusites must use the water shaft to reach the lame and blind, who were despised by David. I don't know.
That is why it is said.
The blind name will never enter the palace. Yeah, I don't know exactly. Whoever attacks the Jebusites must use the water shaft to reach the lame and blind who are despised by David. Must use the water shaft to. Is that where they took? Is that their bathroom? The water shaft?
I'm not sure. And what lame and blind are they talking about? Because I do know that it's against the Torah to curse the blind, at least.
Yeah.
So,
well, he's saying that whoever
are these just
attacks
physically
the
disabled
Jebusites,
people, or are lame and blind? Is that something that's being
whoever
used
attacks the
figuratively?
Jebusites must use the water shaft to reach the lame and blind who are despised by David. Let's see what this A is all about. Who are enemies of David. Hey,
So maybe lame and blind is just figurative speech, and it's not just physically disabled people that are like hiding down in a cave somewhere.
Must use the water shaft. I don't know what the water shaft is. Yeah, if anyone knows, you're welcome to put that in the comments. Maybe it could have been I don't know what an ancient water shaft was. I guess we could look it up. But even still, it sounds more like a little saying.
Yes.
It doesn't sound like an actual edict or law. It just sounds like a little pithy saying to announce how he overcame them, So David took up residence in the fortress and called it the city of David. He built it up all the way around from the supporting terraces inward. And David became greater and greater for the Lord God of hosts who was with him. Now Hiram, king of Tyre, sent envoys to David, along with cedar logs, carpenters, and stonemasons, and they built a palace for David. David realized that the Lord had established him as king over Israel and had exalted his kingdom for the sake of his people, Israel. After he arrived in Hebron, David took more concubines and wives from Jerusalem. More sons and daughters were born to him. These are the names of the children born to him in Jerusalem: Shammua, Shobab, Nathan, Shlomo or Solomon, Ibhar, Elishua, Nepheg, Japhia, Elishama, Eliada, and Eliphelet. So, can you imagine what it's like when he's like 60 something and he's trying to like remember one of these names real quick? And he has to like go through the list. We've all done that. You like use the wrong kid's name. You go through all the kids' names before you get to the right one, especially when they sound so similar, you know?
Oh, yeah. My mom, my whole life was a ja.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Does she finally got to your name?
I was the la. My older sister was the ra. And then there were two Juz. We had Jesse and Josh. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's different. So, so David is actively taking land, taking wives, having babies.
Yes, and this is aside from the wives that he inherited from Saul, apparently. I don't know if we get that part of the story in this book.
Could be in Chronicles.
But I know a lot of the modern day Torah bros who are all interested in this lifestyle like to use Saul's wives as an example of why it's all totes okay to be seeking that out. So
men that do not have a palace.
Yeah.
Men that have a wall tent.
Yeah.
Or just a large fifth wheel, and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to take on 3 extra wives," and you're like, "What?"
Yeah.
No.
Men
no,
that
you're
have
not.
sweet, loving wives who are not barren, who aren't asking for this.
Morally Grounded, thank you so much for the gifted memberships. That's awesome, brother.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you. So, guys, if you were gifted a membership, I have no control over that. I just want to let that be known. So whenever someone does that and they purchase gifted memberships, YouTube automatically disperses them to people in the live chat, I think. So I apologize if you were not selected for. I have no control over that, okay? But if you were selected for one of those gifted memberships, you can access our gifted videos from the courses if you like, I think. I don't really know how all the details work because YouTube is not the best at explaining it to us. So
Gene Riley makes a good point. Typically, kings marry for land security. I can see that being a motive for him back then. But it's not saying he's marrying wives. He's marrying women from foreign
It says
lands,
he took these
right?
from Jerusalem.
Yeah, so these aren't from another kingdom.
Yeah, this is just from the place he just conquered.
I mean, we know Solomon's foreign policy, right? But yeah, this doesn't seem to be foreign policy here.
So 17 begins when the Philistines heard that David had been anointed king over Israel. They went and searched for him, but David learned of this and went down to the stronghold. Now the Philistines had come and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired of the Lord, "Where should I go up against the Philistines?" See, this is the word "go up," and it's not moving cities; it's going to battle, right? Should I go up against the Philistines? Will you deliver them into my hand? "Go up," replied the Lord, "for I will surely deliver the Philistines into your hand." So David went to Baal Perazim, where he defeated the Philistines and said, "Like a bursting flood, the Lord has burst out against my enemies before me." So he called that place Baal Perazim. There the Philistines abandoned their idols, and David and his men carried them away. Once again, the Philistines came up and spread out in the valley of Rephaim. So David inquired of the Lord, who answered, "Do not march straight out, but circle around behind them and attack them in front of the balsam trees." As soon as you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the balsam trees, move quickly, because this will mean that the Lord has gone out before you to strike the camp of the Philistines. So that's interesting. The angel of the Lord.
Yeah.
Still causing problems.
Yeah.
Still there. So David did as the Lord had commanded him, and he struck down the Philistines all the way from Gibeon to Gezer. So were there giants amongst these? We don't know. What kind of damage did the angel Lord do before David's men got there? We don't know. Did they have some kind of special trap set up to think, if they advance at the front, we'll get them this time because we got his traps up? And so he's like, nope, just go around behind them this time. I don't know. It's interesting. Clearly, there's no border walls.
Yeah.
In any of this land.
Yeah.
Like it is just, that's why the cities are fortified, but it seems like the areas in between the cities is just like enemies marching, coming and going.
Yeah.
Like that's a wild way to live. That is
Yeah.
a wild way to live. I mean, this is why they had bands of marauders that just is rough traveling. So maybe this is discouraged travel, you know?
Yeah.
They just stay in their fortified city.
Yeah, the more that I read, especially through the Old Testament and the history of this with you, the more I'm just grateful for living at the time that we do, because I know a lot of people in modern Christianity and in our Torah crowd believe that like we're at one of the most evil times of history, and there's just so much blatant evil out in the whole world, and it's just the world is engulfed in it. And while I don't disagree that there's a lot of evil in the world, I feel like things were muted down so deeply during the 2,000 years of Christendom being a kingdom and being a geopolitical power in the world that it is hard to fathom that this was the way of humanity for most of our history. The majority of the however many thousand years you think we've been here, I believe it's around the 6 number. That is a long time for humanity to be living, and this is the norm and way of life: is constant warfare, constant rising and fallings of kingdoms, no love and romance involved in marriages whatsoever. To a certain extent, women kind of being property, and I'm not just talking about Israel. Obviously, this was, you know, mankind wide, worldwide. You know, having to live under the threat of this kind of destruction all the time. This is scary to me. I am very grateful, and I feel we are very blessed and pampered to be living in a time where we don't have to worry about these kind of things. We don't have to worry about invasions like this and just this kind of life. It's interesting to think about how more of humanity has spent time living in this way than the way we live it now.
Yes, and there is no substantial point in history where women moved into an egalitarian, self-sufficient lifestyle that was a productive, beneficial experience for them.
Right.
The moment that feminism taught women to abandon their fathers and not seek a husband early in their life, it's only been more work, more oppression, more broken homes, more problems, more debt for women. It's a harder life for women.
Yeah, you know, it's sad because their changes did need to be made, and women did need to be treated more Christ-like. Women did need to be elevated more in the sense of we are emotional creatures. Women do need to feel loved. Women do need some romance in their lives. Like, it is something that we thrive on that's emotionally and mentally good for us. So it's unfortunate that feminism was something that was created by unbelieving, satanic, you know, antichrists, because there could have been a lot of good changes made in terms of men being taught how to treat women and their wives and their daughters. You know, like, we could have worked on our collective morals, you know, and our collective treatment of each other without going into that opposite world of, oh, women can do anything a man can do, and women need to be able to rack up their own debt with credit cards and
work 40 hours a week and put their
women
children into someone else's care.
Yeah, you know, like, destroying the nuclear family was definitely not the answer. Like, raising up Christ-like men of God who are taught the love of Christ, not just the rule of Christ, but the love of Christ, and how to be tenderhearted and gentle with their women. You know, that's really what mankind has needed all this time.
Yeah. It's one of the biggest lies that's perpetrated in the last 100 years. As you see, the rest of history was women were either loved and cared for according to God's law by their fathers who loved them, or they were abused by wicked men and wicked kings and wicked governors and princes. And so it really all boils down to, like, this is why the suffragettes voted against feminism. They voted against women voting. There was a group of women that did not want equal rights for women. They foresaw this is a bad thing.
Yeah, they also knew that, and I never was taught this, and I wish I had been, but the responsibility of the vote also was involved in land ownership and going to war to protect that land.
Yep.
So to me, that makes sense that, there was, and they weren't suffragists, they were anti-suffragettes. They didn't want that equality. Because they didn't want to eventually be called out for the draft.
Right.
They were like, no, the women are not supposed to go. They understood our role as in terms of war. The women are not designed to go to war. We're to be here to raise the generation of people who are left over after the war. And if we get the right to vote, then they foresaw in the future that would lead to women being drafted. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. And I would say, I'm going to be honest, that I would say even a righteous king like David, I don't think he was great to his women. I don't personally agree that there's wisdom in multiplying wives. And that's why God does command against kings multiplying wives. There's not much wisdom in that. You do have, you just invite in so much more opportunities for chaos and destruction to your family.
We're going to read about that in a few. Yeah.
And and we all know, because David had all the problems with his children that caused destruction in his house. And Solomon had all the problems with his wives leading his heart astray from the Lord.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the pro-polygamy guys out there will be like, oh, well, monogamy, those relationships have their drama. Yes, they do, but it's contained to those two people. It doesn't create this whole, football team of people to bring into your life and cause, invite all the opportunities for chaos and destruction. So yeah, we know that God's law is for women, but we know that a lot of men who follow God over the generations didn't necessarily apply that law as well as they should have for women. So
it takes everyone following God's law.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, this is where what we're seeing in these chapters, like after Joshua, the books of Judges, and now 1st and 2nd Samuel, is we already received God's law, the wisdom from the Almighty given through angels through the prophet Moses to be carried out by the priests and the elders and the leaders of Israel. And they're all failing.
Yeah.
The teachers, the elders, like we got men generation after generation continually rising up, and it's like God's law is kind of second thought. It's like they use it for their advantage and not use it for discipleship.
Right.
Well,
and even the prophets who are following his law themselves really well might not make the best decisions. Samuel appointed his sons into the priesthood when they clearly were not qualified. They didn't have the hearts for it. And so even Samuel had a weakness in his heart for his own children, which all of us can understand, but we can see how that weakness, even for your own child that you love with all your heart, can, cause problems, can lead to lawlessness, can lead to corruption.
This is why Abraham told Rebekah, Jacob is going to be the one, not Esau, because Isaac doesn't see this.
Yeah.
Isaac was blinded. He was going to put Esau in a position of rulership and priesthood that he did not earn or deserve.
Yeah.
It would have been a bad situation. It would have been like Eli's sons.
Yeah.
It would have been a bad situation. So, and that's where just, again, we gotta get to that resurrection so that we can all be following God's law perfectly. But right now so these stories that we're unfolding here in 1st and 2nd Samuel is just showing you all the chaos that's happening when people stop following God's law, because the prophets are there to tell people to go back to God's law. So that's that's why the prophets are often needed, because people often stray with each new generation. They stray from God's law. So it's an interesting thing.
Definitely
Interesting thing. That's 5 full chapters we did from 2nd Samuel.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to we get into Absalom later. It's going to get pretty gnarly. 2nd Samuel's pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
With what goes on with David's life. Unfortunately, just because he's king now does not mean things are about to get easy.
Yeah.
So it's actually about to get worse.
Yeah.
It's about to get worse.
Gonna keep piling on
until
he dies.
Marley Grounded, thank you so much for gifting more memberships. I appreciate
awesome.
that.
Awesome. Is this a brother or a sister?
I don't know. I think it's a brother. Yeah.
Okay. Let us know if he's wrong. So do
you see that logo? Women don't make logos like that.
Okay.
See, he's a brother.
Okay. So Levi looks to still be sleeping very soundly. So we might actually get to do a Q&A session today.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions. I have not seen a lot of questions today. I'm surprised there's not a whole lot of people in the chat today. Not as many as we normally see. So people might be out enjoying the lovely weather wherever they're at.
Yeah, drop your questions in all caps so I can see them easily.
Yeah, we got Shavuot tomorrow. It's the calendar we're keeping. So
yeah, it is. It
anyone
is the
else?
yearly renewal of the covenant.
Yes, and isn't it interesting that the secular world chose this month of all months to have
To renew their covenant.
to appropriate the rainbow? Isn't it interesting? Because now Shavuot sometimes isn't right in June, right? Like sometimes it can fall in May. I think ideally on the Zadok calendar, it should be around the same time every year, right?
Yeah.
But it's definitely falling in the area of June. So I just find it very interesting that this is the month that basically the rainbow is mocked for a whole month.
It's time for my kingly midday nap.
Okay. Well, you can go join our little prince down there. He's sleeping.
Well, we're potty trained right now, so I will pass.
If he stays asleep, it should be fine.
So we got a first question coming in. Yeah, Robert, many corporations are moving away. It's not politically cool anymore.
Yeah.
They're moving away from promoting the Rainbow Mafia. NZSW is asking thoughts on what the two staffs of Zechariah 11, 10 through 17 and broken represent. I'm particularly interested in verse 11 regarding the covenant being broken. Okay, let's go over there and take a look. Okay. Okay, so we'll go. Let me see. Let me get a. I don't have this chapter memorized, so let me get a feel for this chapter real quick. Probably should start here. This is what the Lord my God says: pasture the flocks marked for slaughter, whose buyers slaughter them without remorse. Those who sell them say, "Blessed be the Lord, for I'm rich." Even their own shepherds have no compassion on them, for I will no longer have compassion on the people of the land, declares the Lord. But behold, I will cause each man to fall into the hands of his neighbor and his king, who will devastate the land and will not deliver it from their hands. So I pastured the flock marked for slaughter, especially the afflicted flock, the afflicted of the flock. And then I took for myself two staffs, calling one favor and the other one union, and I pastured the flock. And in 1 month I dismissed 3 shepherds. My soul grew impatient with the flock, and their souls also detested me. Then I said, I will no longer shepherd you. Let the dying die and the perishing perish, and let those who remain devour one another's flesh. Next, I took my staff called favor, and I cut it into 2, revoking the covenant I'd made with all the nations. It was revoked on that day, and so the afflicted of the flock who were watching me knew that it was the word of the Lord. Then I told them, if it seems right to you, give me my wages, but if not, keep them. So they weighed out my wages, 30 pieces of silver. And the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter, this magnificent price at which they valued me. So I took the 30 pieces of silver, threw them to the potter in the house of the Lord. Then I cut into 2 my second staff, called it union, breaking the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. And the Lord said to me, take up once more the equipment of a foolish shepherd. For behold, I will raise up a shepherd in the land who will neither care for the lost, nor seek the young, nor heal the broken, nor sustain the healthy, but he will devour the flesh of the sheep and tear off their hooves. Woe to the worthless shepherd who deserts the flock. May a sword strike his arm and his right eye. May his arm be completely withered and his right eye utterly blinded. All right, so your question is thoughts on the two staffs Zechariah being broken represent. All right, so it looked like he broke 2 different staffs, both favor and union. So they're being broken. What do they represent? I think it tells us what it represents. That the first staff being broken, one was called favor, the other one union. He's getting these. I don't think these are real sheep in this analogy. The people are the people that are watching him shepherd, and he's getting upset with them, meaning they're not doing righteousness. They're being rebellious and not taking correction. But the staff that he called favor, he cut into 2, and then he also cut the staff union into 2 as well. So your question is thoughts on what the two staffs Zechariah has been broken represent. I'm fairly interested regarding the covenant being broken. All right, so revoking the covenant made with all the nations. For I took my staff called favor and cut it into two, revoking the covenant I made with all nations. It was revoked on that day. So the afflicted, the flock who watched me knew that it was the word of the Lord. I guess I would have to go back further, and I apologize. I'm not as up on the earlier chapters of Zechariah that I might need to be. But I guess I'd have to go back earlier and see what this covenant with the nations that he was talking about. Because I can't remember right now. If anyone remembers, you can put it in the live chat. Yeah. Because it's not a covenant. I mean, if it's a covenant with the nations, I can't remember that particular part. Yeah, unfortunately, this is. I'm trying to remember the exact timeline of Zechariah, and who was king around him at that time. Because if this is in the days where they're being invaded, this could be speaking of Manasseh, who rises up, is someone that doesn't care to do justice, or the people after Hezekiah. So yeah, I don't have the best answer for you, brother. I have to do some more research on this one. Yeah, just keep studying it. Let me know what you find out. I don't remember covenant with the nations. I have to look at alternate translations. Unfortunately, long story short, this it's a good question. I guess I need to learn this a little bit better, and I don't. I would need to spend more time on it to give you a good, accurate answer. So we'll try to move on to some other questions, though.
Well, there's our next book we're studying when we're done with Daniel.
Yeah, we can study Zechariah.
I definitely could know Zechariah better, that's for sure.
Crossed Over Acres is saying, you're told the Jewish people today hold the scepter mentioned in Genesis 46:10. Okay? No. The prophecy of Genesis 46:10 is that Judah will hold the scepter until Shiloh comes. Most people agree that the concept of Shiloh is the prophecy of Messiah. Messiah came, now Messiah has the scepter, who is a line from the tribe of Judah, who is king over the ecclesia as the high priest over the covenant, and has ascended to the throne of heaven above and has fulfilled that prophecy. So the people on the ground do no longer have any kind of authority on the ground. They're dispersed, as is also prophesied, because they rose up against the Messiah. They rose up against Shiloh.
Yeah, typically people who are making that argument are doing it to support the idea of submitting to the authority of the modern day Sanhedrin.
Yeah.
And that any questions,
they reject Christ.
Yeah, so. And that any questions that you have on Torah and keeping it, you go to the rulings of Sanhedrin because they are still your rulers according to that prophecy, as well as there's another verse in Deuteronomy that they use. But clearly, yeah, someone who actively rejects our Messiah, our high priest, is in the category of Korah and has no authority over anyone. So, except the people who submit themselves to them in ignorance.
Thank you, Jay Laurel. I appreciate your prayers.
We
definitely appreciate your prayers.
Absolutely.
It's still a unresolved situation.
Yeah.
Mike Lascala is asking, hang on a second. Mike Lascala is asking, do you know if the angels tasked with watching humanity rest from their duties on Sabbath? Or is it similar to priests who still do their duties even on Shabbat? So yes, to the latter, right? I believe that the angels that are tasked, Hebrews 1:14, to come to the earth, to minister to those inherent salvation in a variety of ways. I think that they rotate. The Bible describes a ridiculous amount of angels in heaven.
Yeah.
So I think they rotate out so that they, when they're here, it's as if they're doing a priestly duty, which sometimes will require them to do service on Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
When they're not here, they abide by the law in heaven just as we do on earth and celebrate Shabbat and rest. So it's still, remember, it's lawful to do good. So to go help your little brother on earth who needs your help in some form of ministry, that's lawful even on Shabbat. So They just rotate according to how God has described their schedules, and that would make perfect sense to me.
Yeah, aren't there also angels involved in some of the natural workings of
Yep.
creation itself? So the luminaries and the winds
Yep.
and things like that. So yeah.
And there's a squad for each compartment
Right.
of creation.
Right.
So there's plenty to rotate out and take their breaks, basically. All right. Royce is asking, what do you think the daily routine of angels, demons are? Also, do you think angels are like mailmen for our prayers? How powerful is prayer to you? I think that, well, I guess this works well with the question we just answered.
Yeah.
I think that they have a routine as prescribed to them according to their service to visit Earth. Otherwise, they have duties and responsibilities where they live in heaven above. Not that they have to work for money like we do,
Right.
but they still have duties and responsibilities to God because they're called his servants. They're all his servants, whether it's helping maintain the creation or whether it's something else up there we don't know about. I'm sure they got some form of duties and responsibilities that holds them accountable and that helps them maintain fellowship. So I don't know what their daily routine is in heaven. Honestly, I don't know what that would possibly look like. And what do they do when they come to Earth? Well, depends on what they were sent to do. Are they sent here to judge? Are they sent here to help, to save, to rescue, to teach, to heal? Just depends on what gifts of the Spirit they're carrying with them, according to Christ's command as they were sent. And so I apologize. It's a good question. I like your thought. The Bible doesn't give us a full breakdown of a day in the life of an angel, right? That would be a great reality TV show when you get to heaven, when the kingdom comes. Day in the life of an angel. That'd be amazing. As far as demons, well, they're just
up to no good.
As Christ talks about, I think it's in Matthew 11. They're just seeking whom they can devour, right? So they're just they're wandering through dry and arid places, seeking a host or a place where they can feel welcomed or even invited in a more severe case when people do witchcraft. But as far as the regular person, they're probably taking orders from their hierarchical command of demons all the way up to the head, which is Satan, as Jubilees 10 tells us, to which then they're going out to, as Jubilees 15 talks about, or Jubilees 10 talks about, they're created in order to destroy. They although they thirst, they're never satisfied with drink. Although they hunger, they're never satisfied with food. They're designed in order to oppress, attack, and destroy, and come after mankind. So prayer is powerful, right? It's powerful because not only we're told to do it, but because it's literally a part of the priesthood is to take the incense before the Lord, which represents the prayers of the saints. We see this in Revelation chapter 5. And yes, the priests the priests of heaven, which are the angels, as Revelation chapter 5 is angels taking the prayers of the saints via the incense to the Lord, is somehow communicated on our behalf. So if you want to call them mailman, sure. They're just probably a lot more reliable than the average mailman.
I think messengers might be the more accurate
A messenger
label.
Sure. A reverse messenger, because typically the word messenger is used coming top down. But sure, messenger. Either way, they do work on our behalves. It's literally why they're here. And the book of Enoch tells us, I think it's in chapter 99, it tells us that they literally write down our sins and our deeds every day. So that's another part, I guess, when they're here, that's a part of their daily job, is they're literally writing down, your life is not hidden. So
Taking notes, which begs the question, and Sean and I have begged it, about the Lord's. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We got to go, guys.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
That's it.
We're doing like special potty training today,
Baby's
so
up, diapers off. So
we got to go.
Yeah, we're gotta go.
Appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next time.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.